quite.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。
It's an action-packed Sunday in the IPL, and RCB seem to be the team to stop. They've picked up another win. They've beaten the Kolkata Knight Riders in what turned out to be a pretty convincing game at the end. It still had our interest when Andre Russell came in, found his six hitting form again, and decided that he's going to farm the strike for the last 12 balls. But it all fizzled out pretty quickly in Mohammad Siraj's over. This is Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Intel. Dan Vettori and Ian Bishop are with me, and let's go to Dan first up. RCB look like they're on a roll, Daniel.
They're playing really good cricket. I think the thing for them is that they're nicely balanced, and that's always something that's always been an issue in the past. And you can see some new bowlers come into the team. Harshal Patel's bowled so well. Their spinners did a great job tonight, and obviously we know that batting lineup. So it'll be a really confident RCB team, particularly going to Chepauk and winning. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground in the past. So they are on a roll, and it's because it's 11 players contributing at the moment.
And those 11 don't even need to include a fourth overseas, Bish. Whoever they're playing, whoever they're batting up top, it all seems to be working for their side.
Yeah, they've managed to do what they've done, and they haven't fired on all cylinders because Virat Kohli hasn't really had a big innings. Devdutt Padikkal is still trying to find his best form as well. So there's still room for growth in their squad. Great to see AB de Villiers do what he did today with Maxwell.
Now, that penultimate over, you think RCB are well ahead in the game anyway. But again, we'll just discuss. A player like Andre Russell feels good about hitting it and decides not to take singles. Perfectly understandable, because at the end of the day, they've lost by a significant margin. Bish, what do you make of it?
In those situations, and you know what I think about these not taking single things. So I always thinking net run rate, even in a situation that you think it's a lost cause, you still got to have your head on. So again, I'd do it differently.
Dan?
Well, the amount of times as a coach, the 14th game comes down to either the rained out game early in the season or the net run rate, and you look back to the previous 13 games and see what you could have done better. I understand Andre Russell's only thinking about winning the game at that time, and he's not thinking about a single being a factor in net run rate at the end of the season, but all these little things matter when it comes to making the playoffs.
Okay, well, we'll see if it comes back to bite KKR. They did miss out on the playoffs last season purely on net run rate. But Bish, it did look like Andre Russell's found some of his hitting form again. That's one of the positives that KKR would take from this.
That would be very, very nice. The thing about Andre is that I wonder if he's worked as hard and as assiduously on his batting, let's say, over the last 2.5 seasons as he should. I know he's had his injury problems. I really do feel that he hasn't fulfilled a lot of what he's capable of doing in the last couple of seasons, and that just, to me, comes down from application and looking to fine-tune your batting. But good that he's gotten some runs under his belt, because KKR are going to need everything from him going forward.
Now, what would KKR take away from this, Dan? It looks like similar sort of problems. Morgan still not had that big innings that they need him to. Were they just chasing far too many today, or there's still concerns about KKR's batting as a unit?
I think so. I think you want something from that top three. I think Shubman Gill is a quality player that can be like the other openers we see around the IPL at the moment, and a guy who can really be the linchpin of their side. So that top three needs to perform, and I think their middle order can complement whatever their top three does. So you've seen the likes of Morgan in the past come in for England after Jason Roy or Johnny Bairstow or Ben Stokes, Butler. They've all got runs, and he's been able to come in and put the icing on the cake. So that's the style that can win games for them. And at the moment, that top three probably isn't giving them as much as they want, albeit in difficult circumstances tonight.
No problem for Bangalore with their superstars performing. Bish, I didn't have you for the mid-show, but we were just marveling on what we saw from Maxwell, and you think that would be the best innings of the day, and suddenly it wasn't even the best innings of that innings when AB did what he did. Just thoughts on how it's all coming together for Maxwell and RCB?
I mean, it's brilliant. Though. I mean, even over the years when he's been inconsistent and he hasn't given the volume of runs that I suppose many people expected from him. You call him a maverick, big show, but we saw in the Big Bash again, the last one, what he's capable of. So just to have him fulfilling that potential, Irfan Pathan would be the happiest man on the planet with each knock that he plays. So now it's good to see him, and he can pace his innings. We're seeing him pacing his innings at times, not just smacking it, but playing quite sensibly and smartly. So this whole thing about this is the way I play, good to see that's gone out the window and he plays situations.
Now it's just wins out of wins for RCB. Dan, if you have to sum up in one line, how do you stop RCB? Are they the team to beat now in this early part of the tournament?
I think we need to do a review on what after every season who's won 3 games and what they go on to do after that, because it's never the case. Kings 11 seem to be top of the table every year and then not make the playoffs. So I think the good thing for RCB is they look a very good side. And as Bish mentioned, we still haven't seen the best of Kohli yet. So if you put him on top of all that's been going well for them, then they have the makings of a very good team.
All right. Well, let's move our attention to the second game, North Indian Derby, if you'd like to call it that. Punjab and Delhi all set to play in Mumbai. And these are two teams that are looking to bounce back after defeats in their last respective games. Toss has already happened. We're already 18 minutes past 7 local time. So match is about to begin in 12 minutes. But there are some very interesting selection calls that have been made. Let's go to the Delhi Capitals first up. We did preview this game and we thought about whether Anrik Nokia would come straight in after available. But there's a cap for Steve Smith, Bish. So he plays for the Delhi Capitals. They've not gone back to Hetmeyer, but they've balanced things out by leaving out Ajinkya Rahane and playing a domestic Indian seamer in Lukman Meriwala. So that's an interesting reshuffling of sorts. Smith coming in, your thoughts, Bish?
Yeah, that to me was an interesting one. And Rahane, when he came in for a few games last season, he didn't really conquer the environment because you're using him as a stabilizer. And he hasn't really done that in the first couple of games this season either, in the limited time that he's had. So I thought Steve Smith would have come in at the start of the season, to be quite honest with you, because he can provide, in his best form, the ability to hold an innings together. And once he gets in, he can flow. So I don't mind that experience. I'd really like to be aware of where Anrik Nokia is with his fitness right now.
Okay, interesting. But it looks like Delhi have gone for 3 different approaches, Dan, in 3 games. When they started, they wanted to play Rahane 3 and Hetmeyer in the middle. Then next game decided they don't need the batting, so they'll play 3 overseas seamers. So Tom Curran, Rabada and Vokes play. Now they've gone the other way. They've decided to bring Smith in and leave out Rahane. What are you getting from these decisions?
Well, I think first of all it's because Vokes has bowled so well, so they'll be happy with his form and his ability to bowl at all stages of the innings. I think has given them a few luxuries. So Norkie probably misses out at this stage, but because of that partnership with Rabada last year, we will see it at some stage. I think you see Steve Smith on your bench and you think, oh, I better give him a go. So it's hard to leave a player of his quality out, and I think Rahane hasn't quite worked in the first couple of games. So it just seems like most teams after 3 games, Delhi is searching for that formula, and good on them for trying a few things early on.
How much of this, Bish, is a result of batting suddenly becoming challenging at the 1K day? And then when you're thinking, challenging surfaces, Steve Smith, got to play him.
Well, he's one of the best long-form batsmen in the world, and at times in IPL seasons, he's shown you that he can change gears. So he provides everything for you. So again, as I said, when Hetmeyer got the nod initially, I thought that would have gone to Smith. That was my personal selection, and I'm not saying that I'm right about it. And he provides, in this lineup, he can provide a point of difference when you've got Rishabh Pant, stroke player, Prithvi Shaw, Shikhar Dhawan playing a lot of shots now. Marcus Stoinis can play a lot of shots as well. Steve Smith provides that ballast, if they need it, of proven test match class. And you have to think he should be in decent form. So I think that's a nice sort of safety procedure for them.
Okay, we'll find out how things go. But Lukman Meriwala also gets a debut. Seamer from Baroda picked up at the auction recently. So it's a little change of of balance for the team as well. Rahane is out and Meriwala comes in. They stick with Lalit Yadav in the middle order. It did give you the impression, though, that if Steve Smith plays, Dan, it's very hard to fit in both Smith and Rahane in the same 11.
I don't think it's possible. It's one or the other, and depending on that combination of overseas players, I think they will look to Smith to I suppose give them some calmness around the state of the wicket and be able to read a game. And I think more than his ability, they'll look to him to actually almost captain it while he's out in the middle and batting and set a sort of an assessment around the total, understand the wicket and help other batsmen along the way. And I think that's what they see when they have someone like him in the side.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, there is a change made by Punjab as well. I was very curious to see if they do look to rearrange their own balance of their team. It's not come in the form of an overseas swap, though. It has come in the form of an Indian swap. So they've decided to go for Jalaj Saxena, who's been around the circuit a long time. The all-rounder from MP is a veteran in domestic cricket. He's been part of the Delhi Daredevils in the past, the Kings 11 Punjab. He gets a game now for the Delhi Capitals. For Punjab Kings. And now Murugan Ashwin, the frontline leg spinner, goes out. So no wrist spinner. Bish, they've looked to address, I guess, that balance. They brought in the Indian all-rounder as against the overseas one. Thoughts?
And someone like Saxena, I think he had a good season for Kerala. I think he got 10 wickets, so he provides that ability. Remember, we discussed, I think, in our build-up, the ability to turn the ball away from Shikhar Dhawan, to provide some control, turn the ball away from Rishabh Pant as well. Well, there are other problems apart from that with Steve Smith coming in now. But just the ability to provide finger spin, control, and someone theoretically who can turn the ball away if he gets overs under his belt, I think is a good option. We just have to wait and see how it plays out down at the Wankhede, which hasn't offered a great deal for the slow men.
It's again just another team that's willing to play without a wrist spinner. Delhi joined that ranks. KKR are happy to go without a wrist spinner. Now Punjab as well. Dan, the world's changing.
Well, Punjab had 2 last year, so they've gone from Bishnur, I think, as an M. Ashwin to all the way to this position that they're in now with playing Jalaj Saxena. And I think more than anything, it might be for him to bat 7. I think when they see Jai Richardson walking out to the wicket at 7, it's a bit nervous for everyone involved. So he gives you a little bit of everything, but hopefully the thing that he does give, like Bish mentioned, is around his ability to take the ball away from Shikhar Dhawan and Rishabh Pant. And if he can bowl some overs through those middle stages on a Wankhede wicket that is potentially like the ones we've seen in the last few games, then he can offer some real options to KL Rahul.
All right, now Delhi won the toss, worth mentioning that as well. They're going to have a bowl first. So again, Punjab finding themselves batting first. After what was a bit of a batting collapse, do you expect a different approach, Bish, this time? Maybe Gale and Rahul aren't going to be running too many quick singles?
Look, I think they have to trust themselves and back themselves. Rahul's form was good in that first game, and he got run out last game. Just beware of the runouts. We've talked about these runouts that are happening in recent games. Rishabh Pant, KL Rahul, last night, David Warner as well. So just be careful of that. Gale looked in good touch in the first game that they played. So I hope they don't try to push the accelerator too hard with the view that Dew may come into play later on at the back end and make batting a little bit easier. Just be very wary of how the ball behaves first up.
You're always tempted to go by a reputation of the ground, Dan, and you think Wankhede, I need to get as many, especially if you've lost the toss in a batting. And then all of a sudden, recently, the Wankhede seems to have troubled a batsman or two in the first innings. How do you balance that out as opening batsman now?
Well, I think all batsmen have that recency bias, and they'll be looking at this wicket and thinking it's got gremlins in it. So the old Wankhede of 200, 220, we're all so excited to come here and play, I think has disappeared in the last week. So there'll be a lot more thought and planning going into that first 5 overs, I think, in particular. And I think once those batsmen can understand what the wicket's doing, the pace of it, and whether it is similar to what they've seen in the last week or it is the old Wankhede Stadium, will dictate how they play and how they can assess and how they can pass that information on to the rest of the batting lineup.
Can I just make a point on that, Raunak? Just what adds to what we're saying here is that You remember how much conversation in the first game today in Chennai was about load up the front and have a real go hard. Well, it turned out to be the opposite. RCB didn't quite have the impetus at the top, but they loaded up through the middle and the back end. So you really have to assess the conditions quite carefully and quickly, and not go in with a predetermined judgment on how you should play.
Okay, fair enough. One player I'd love to get Vish's thoughts on, and Dan as well. Nicholas Puran. Now, I remember last season, Vish, he started with a duck in that tied game and got another duck in the super over as well. And you're thinking, such a good player, you hope he's gonna tee off, and he did tee off. Now this year, Punjab bring him in for a slightly different role, batting a little lower. He's had a couple of ducks to start with. Seems far too good a player to even come under pressure. But is there a missing ingredient for Nicholas Puran? How does he establish himself as this T20 beast in the IPL? Because we certainly know he's good enough.
My personal view, and I'm not talking about what other people think, is that he's still a young man learning his game. One of the things he's fought with over the last year and still fighting with is how to finish games once he gets in. Now, he will come under a little bit of scrutiny, but I still feel that Nicholas Puran needs to give himself time. It sounds like a broken record with almost every player. There's this big reputation that he'll come in, he'll have a go and just blast his way. He's still trying to find out what his best game is consistently. Time gives him that, but I'm not sure with the construct of the batting order whether he'll always have that option.
It could be the IPL for that sort of thing, Dan. Batsmen who just all need a little bit of time. It may not be, we're spoiled by choice from what we've seen in IPLs before, Russells and Pollards and all of them going immediately, Hardik Pandyas. This seems to be taking a slightly different tone this IPL.
I think particularly on these surfaces. So batsmen have always thought they can come in and play, and now we've seen that's not the case, and you have to give yourself a little bit of time. And even you look at De Villiers' innings today, his first 5, 6 to 10 balls were quite sedate, and he was able to read a wicket and then go. And I think if anything, Nicholas Puran can learn from these experienced batsmen that are going around IPL cricket at the moment is you do have 10 balls, and a player of his quality and his ball striking ability can take up that time. And we don't want to overact to 2 ducks because of how class a player is, but we also know how quickly things change in the IPL and how quickly selection matters come to the table, and teams are changed, and it can really get away from you quickly. So we say you're not in a rush to get runs, but 3 or 4 games without a performance, and then people start watching.
Yeah, especially when you look at the reserves. Punjab have David Malans in those reserves. Moses Enriques is there. So we'll keep an eye out. But let's see if we get the best of Nicholas Puran. Now, just getting a quick glimpse of what's happening in the one. R. Ashwin didn't bowl out his 4 in the last game. And Ricky Ponting admitted that might have been an error. I thought he was taking the new ball, but they've given it to Chris Vokes. So they're going with Chris Vokes. This is another interesting little internal selection called Bish. Andrik Nokia, like you pointed out, we don't know if he's fully fit or whatever it may be. But it does look like eventually they can only play 2 out of Nokia, Vokes and Rabada. So this is, with every performance, you're keeping a keen eye on how that goes.
Listen, the way that those 2 guys forged a partnership, Rabada and Nokia last year, great respect to Chris Vokes. At some point in the season, you have to find out whether Rabada and Nokia are in the same form that they were in last season. They were a big part of why Delhi Capitals got to the final last year. So as much as it's swingy conditions and you want to go with Vokes and you're thinking, well, the batting order also needs that ballast from my overseas players, at some point, Nokia has to come back into the squad and partner Rabada.
All right. Well, keep an eye out. Fascinating game. Both teams would be eyeing the 2 points up for grabs. So let's pick up the chat with Ian Bishop and Ajit Agarkar in 20 overs time. Dan Vettori, you're done with your day. Don't you like these early starts? You can go to bed now.
Very grateful for the scheduling of yours, Raunak. Please keep it coming.
Give me a little more power. I'll put all these games to the BCCI at 3:30. Thank you very much, Ian Bishop and Dan Vettori. Get their thoughts at halftime on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket Info T20 Timeout, powered by Intel. And our Intel Fastest Fan First contest is still up and running. So head over to the ESPN Cricket Info Facebook page. You fancy yourselves answering a few questions on the IPL and winning some lovely prizes, then that's your destination. Right, we'll take stock of how many Punjab have got. The batting unit that didn't fire in the last game but did in the one before that. Let's see which one shows up this time.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。